Hello everybody. I today am doing my May wrap up. I read 28 books in May, which I'm genuinely so surprised by because the end of the semester it was a mess. And so I totally thought I was not reading that much. I think part of it was I did read a lot for school in that last month, but still I'm so shocked. So without further ado, because I read so much, I'm just gonna go ahead and get into it. I'm just gonna talk about them in order that I read them this time, because I think that makes the most sense in my brain. So, the first book that I finished was Black Feminism Reimagined by Jennifer Nash. I read this also in April. This was for one of my seminars on Black feminism, and this was probably my favorite book we read in there. It was very challenging, so it kind of challenges the traditional notions or traditional ideas of Black feminism and is asking Black feminists to move past intersectionality. It was just really interesting. It really opened up my mind to think about what are all of the other ways of analysis besides intersectionality, like assemblage theory. So overall, I really loved this one, and I don't know if it's like a top 10 read of the year, but I feel like this will end up in my top nonfiction of the year for sure because it was just so compelling, challenging because it's a lot of theory, but also just really, really interesting and just changed the way that I think. And I love when books do that. And then next, I had finished Edinburgh by Alexander Chee. I keep thinking says Edinburgh. It's Edinburgh. But anyway, this was a book I read for my queer lit class. This was like a heartbreaking book. It was very difficult. It was beautifully written, but the themes of abuse and especially childhood abuse were just really hard to read. So this is not one I can recommend, because you just don't know what other people have gone through. But I do think if you think you can handle it, I would recommend it as a book. The writing is incredible. It's just the subject matter it's hard to recommend. Basically follows this boy who is being abused by his choir director when he's 12, and then follows the aftermath of that as well as what happened him as an adult. And it's just really it's really sad, but it's also really interesting to think about queerness's relationship to abuse. And so I did enjoy it, but it was also a really tough read. Next, I had read Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. This was on audiobook. This was really good. It is about a unexpected pregnancy and how that pregnancy and the child affects everybody in a family. And it was just really interesting, and it's super short and yet really impactful. I've read one other Jacqueline Woodson, her middle grade memoir type thing. So this was interesting to read as a fiction book. So I really enjoyed this one. And then I also read Haruki Murakami's First Person Singular. This is a collection of stories, and this was incredible. This was my first my first fiction Murakami. I read his biography memoir type thing, but I've not read any of his fiction. This was really interesting. I believe I ended up rating it 5 stars, which is rare for a story collection, but I just kind of had to, because there's one story that I just didn't really like. I didn't fully understand, but the rest were just so magical and surreal, and it's just so interesting as a collection. Like, this is definitely one you need to read in order, because then as you go along, you get the feeling the narrator is like the same person, and like later the way he describes, like, he himself, Murakami, is the narrator. And that was just really interesting as a reading experience. So I did love that, and it was probably one of my favorite short story collections. Like, they were all incredible. So I loved this one. And then I read this book, Aphrodite Made Me Do It by Trista Mateer. So I've read one of her other poetry collections and I loved it, one of my favorite collections of all time. So I wanted to pick something else by her. I did not love this one as much. Definitely, I think some people like would really love it because it definitely has themes of like self-love and like moving past harm. Personally for me, it just didn't really work. So it can't all be winners. I mean, it was still good. I think I rated this 3.5 or 4 stars. There's really cool art in it as well. I just like wasn't as impressed by the poetry as I was by the other collection I'd read, which is called like The Dogs I've Kissed. I really liked that one. So in comparison, I just didn't love this one. Next, I read She Drives Me Crazy by Kelly Quinlan. Chef's kiss of a book. I highly recommend it. It is a sapphic, like, enemies to lovers book about a basketball player and a cheerleader, and they like hate each other, and then they accidentally get in a car wreck. So the basketball player has to drive the cheerleader to school, and it's just so good. There are so many good tropes in here. The only one Ben trope is here. The whole like athlete and cheerleader trope, of course. There's just so much, as well as like the romance is superb, and then the side characters are also really incredible. They were like the two main girls as best friends were both so well developed and just like such lovely people. And I also really like that this isn't just a romance, it's also about the basketball player named Scotty trying to get over her ex, who she's a very toxic relationship with. And I really like that aspect as well. I do think like I love having sapphic books about like your first love, but I also really enjoyed this book because it wasn't a first love and it was just like it was her just in another relationship and trying to get past her old relationship. And I thought that was really sweet. It's not something we see as much in like sapphic books. So I really appreciated that. And overall, this book was just incredible and incredible, stunning, never been done before. I love it. Next, I read Thick and Other Essays by Tressie McMillan Cottom. I read this for school. This was a great collection. I think my favorite was Know Your Rights or Dying to Be Competent. I really like the one Black is Over as well. There was a lot of bangers in here. I really liked it. It's really like quite a short read. Doesn't feel too like academic. She writes a lot for like popular presses, so it felt more like reading a news article or something. I really appreciated that because I was at my wit's end, and so I really enjoyed this. I highly recommend it. Black Feminist Essays. It was awesome. Then I read Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson. This was not a win for me. I just did not enjoy the obviously it's a thriller, there's more than one twist, but the like main twist that happens maybe halfway, 2/3 through the book, it was just not it. And I think he was going for like a feminist type of story because he put in the acknowledgments like he acknowledged Margaret Atwood as well as somebody else that then he put in parentheses, like, for showing me the Margaret Atwood quote, and I was like, "This is not The Handmaid's Tale. This is not it." And so, uh, yeah, I did not like this one. I would not recommend it. Uh, but I do hope this is my first Peter Swanson, and I am not gonna let this book like sour him for me because I know from everybody that his other books are way better. So I'm interested in reading some of his backlist and hopefully I'll like one of those more. But sadly, this was just not it. Next, I read Nevada by Imogene Binney. This is another one that just was not it for me. I didn't hate the story. I think a huge critique of this book is the unlikable characters. It follows this trans woman in New York who ends up breaking up with her girlfriend. She gets fired from her job because she would like just walk out in the middle of the day all the time. And she ends up getting fired, and so then she ends up stealing the car of her ex-girlfriend and buying a bunch of heroin, going on this cross-country road trip. Then she meets like this other person, and like a friendship ensues. I just didn't. It wasn't my problem. Was not with her as a character. It was more just with I didn't really like the writing style, and I also didn't like not that I didn't like the ending, but that the ending felt so underdeveloped and like half baked. Like it felt like the author was just like, I don't want to write anymore because the way it ended was just so like um not even sad, just like it ended and it felt so anticlimactic. So not a huge fan of that, but I mean, I don't know if I would recommend this to other people. I mean, I do think it's like I read this for my queer lit class, and this is definitely like a staple. But I did not personally enjoy reading it. But also I think this is written for trans women, and so they might get more out of it. Maybe another big problem I had was like the white privilege. I mean, obviously, she stole a car and bought all this heroin, and somehow she's still alive. And even though she like faces a lot of problems as a trans woman, I just felt like her whiteness wasn't really acknowledged when that was like a huge privilege of how she's able to stay at her job for so long before being fired and how she was able to steal this car and just all of this different stuff. And so I gotta say, this was not my favorite and it will probably be donated. Next, I read Pet by Akwaeke Emezi, and I loved this book. I just loved everything about it. I loved the way that they created this world that's like so utopic at first glance. In the way that like our main character, blanking on her name, Jam, how Jam is able like Jam lives as like a trans girl and it's just and as an autistic trans girl and it's just so like accepted in society. Like if the fact that she's nonverbal is just like okay, like we'll teach her sign language. Like I just love that world aspect of it. And then the actual themes in here deal with child abuse and which was definitely like difficult to read, but it also is a YA, and so it's not like very. In contrast to Edinburgh, this is much more digestible and not as like graphic to me. And it just was quite good. So I highly recommend picking this one up. I mean, definitely check out the trigger warnings first. But if you're interested, I would definitely recommend. Next, I read this little collection, this little essay, Nothing Personal by James Baldwin. They just released this essay in a book format, and it has a forward and afterward with it, which is what makes it like a book length because the essay is actually very short. But the essay goes with some photographs, I believe. It's usually paired alongside this like art piece. This is the first time the essay has been printed by itself. So it was interesting, and just as an aside, and then the essay was really good. I mean, obviously James Baldwin, you can't go wrong, and so it was super great. Definitely recommend. I'm guessing the essay is probably available online somewhere, so I would definitely recommend searching it. It doesn't take long to read, and it was super great. Next, I read We Want Our Bodies Back by Jessica Care Moore. I read this for school. This was an incredible collection of poetry. Love Jessica Care Moore. I met her over Zoom, and I just loved so many of these poems. I think one of my favorite is probably the title poem, We Want Our Bodies Back, is just so good, and there is an awesome like interpretive dance to the poem that's on YouTube. If I remember, I will link it below, and it's really incredible. I loved it. I love it so much. So I really recommend checking that out. If I don't link it, you can definitely search it. And uh, overall, I would totally recommend her poetry. It's incredible. I love it. And next, I have my last book that I read for school, and is Barbara Browning's The Gift. This is super interesting because this is kind of autofiction, I guess. I don't love that term, but uh, the main character is named Barbara Anderson, and it follows Barbara Browning. I mean, this is a real event, but then she's fictionalized some parts of it, and about her. She starts like spamming people with ukulele covers, and it's called like inappropriate intimacies. And then she ends up forging this like erotic relationship with this autistic savant that lives in Germany that's like making this like incredible music, and they share this like erotic and artistic relationship together. And among that going on, it also just talks about her life and her, her girlfriend, her son, um, her like one of her good friends is a performance artist, and her like going to all of his performances. It was this was like enjoyable in some aspects. I did not really like the way that autism was presented in this book. So overall, this is considered to be like a really joyful queer book. Most of my class thought that. I personally did not think that, but I did like the book for other reasons. Like I like the way it was written and the messages in it about like gift economies. So overall, I still don't know what to rate this. I somewhere between probably around a 4, 3 or 4. It's really I really have no idea because I have such mixed feelings. Um, I would recommend this to a specific audience if you really like high art, or are interested in gift economies. You would like this, but I feel like it's not something that the general public would love. So yeah, I personally just do not care for it. Next, I read Cheer Up, Love and Pom Poms. This was such a cute graphic novel. Thank you, NetGalley, for the arc. Comes out in August, I believe, so keep your eyes peeled for this. I feel like this could be the next like queer graphic novel. So it's just so cute. It's totally the like angry lesbian type sunshine lesbian energy, and if you like the angry lesbian, is super smart, but she needs extracurricular, so her mom makes her join cheerleading, and then she is kind of childhood friends to lovers maybe, and they she like is friends with all the cheerleaders eventually, but really forges a friendship and relationship with our main cheerleader. I'm totally blanking on their names. And the main cheerleader is this like trans girl who the two girls used to be like really good friends if they were younger and kind of grew apart, but now they're both back on the same cheerleading team in high school, and it is just so cute. Like their friendship is so cute, as well as like the team dynamics. I love a good sports book with some team dynamics. So cute, and there's also some other great queer rep outside of these two. Like there's like a non-binary character on the cheerleading team that just it makes my life, and so I loved all of this, and it was just incredible. 5 stars. I'm hoping they make more. I don't know if they will, but I wish that they would because this would be great as a series. But as it stands, so cute. I will probably be buying when it gets closer to the publication date because I really want to have it on my shelves. And uh, yeah, it was just incredible, amazing, show stopping, never been done before. Next, I have the Little Book of Self Care for Virgo. This is super cute. This is just like super cute. They make ones for each sign, so I definitely recommend picking the one up for your sign. It was pretty cheap. I'm pretty sure I got this to in a order to like get free shipping or something, and it's just so lovely. Most of it does give you kind of a 101 of astrology, and then kind of delves into like what self-care practices are best for your sign, and it was great, and it's lovely. A lot of them I already do, so I was like, wow, I know myself, and then some I'm excited to try. So overall, what a fantastic book. Love it. Cute little book. Love it. Next, I read The House at the Bottom of the Lake by Josh Malerman. This was so interesting. There's like apparently really mixed feelings on this. From the reviews I saw, like some people hate this, they hate the way it ends, but I thought I liked the ending. I thought it was clever, and the actual like story, most of the book is like these two teenagers. They go on their first date, they go canoeing together, they find a house at the bottom of a lake, and they decide to explore it. And it is just so atmospheric and creepy. I wouldn't say this is definitely not a thriller, and it's not even really a horror, but it feels, you do get that mood sometimes because the way that you feel while reading it, like you're just so on the edge of your seat because you feel like something bad is going to happen, is crazy. It's such a little book too, so I definitely recommend this one. It especially would be fun and to read in summer. It's set in the summer, very like has an atmosphere of like your last high school summer. So I enjoyed this quite a bit. I believe I gave it 4 stars because it was pretty good for a horror. It was also my first Josh Malerman, so that was interesting. Next, I read this collection of Avatar comics that has The Lost Adventures and Team Avatar Tales. This is like a kid's graphic novel. I finished Avatar, so I was just hungry for some more content. This is super cute. It doesn't really, apparently, like the other comics, more like add on to the world or add on to the story. This isn't really that. It's more just like some filler content. But I still thought it was kind of fun, good palate cleanser, especially during finals week. It was nice to just read a couple comics and go back to working. So I did love that aspect. This would be great for a kid that's really into Avatar. Um, but I think for adults, it's not like the most compelling. Next, I read Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This book, incredible, 10 out of 10, incredible, show-stopping, amazing. This is just a short, almost novella. I'm pretty sure my copy is like 160 pages, and it follows this woman who is like often, like most autistic representation, is not explicitly autistic, but if you know what autism is, you know that she is. And she like just wants to work in this convenience store. That's what she loves to do. That's what gives her purpose in life. That's what helps her set a routine to function as a human. And her life just revolves around this convenience store. And that was fine when she first started, when she was 18. But now she's 37, and people keep pressuring her that she needs to get married, that she needs to settle down, to have children, to quit her job, and she doesn't want to do any of those things. She just wants to work at the convenience store. And it was just such an interesting character exploration of, I thought, like her kind of self analysis of how she theorizes her place in the world as an autistic woman was really interesting, and it just like really made me think, something I think I'll keep thinking about for a long time, which to me makes a 5-star book. So I really love this, and it's one of those where not much happens, but also so much happens, and I just loved it so much. I definitely recommend, if you like literary fiction, translated fiction is great. Next, I read this Words of Change series book, and this one's called Queer, and it's mostly just a collection of quotes. There's some pictures in there as well about queerness, and it was really lovely. I got an arc, but I believe it's already come out at this point. Just like a little coffee table book. Honestly, I really loved it, and I might buy it. I think this would be a great gift for a lot of people. I think especially for like a graduate, this would be a great gift. But in general, I think it's just a fun book to give. It's not just quotes that are just like be you. Like there's really radical thought in here, and a real focus and theme throughout all of the quotes is on trans liberation, which I found like I was not expecting in this sort of like coffee table book, and so I really appreciate that. And there's just so many different quotes from all sorts of people. I think there's definitely a lot of activist quotes, but then there's also like a lot of authors like George M. Johnson, Garth Greenwell, Carmen Marie Machado, just incredible selection. So I really enjoyed that aspect. So I was really pleasantly surprised by this, and yeah, I'm considering buying it or asking for it for my birthday, because I think it's such a cute book that would be like an awesome coffee table book or book to display, and it's just very like aesthetically pleasing too. Next, I read Scaredy Squirrel in a Nutshell, and this was also an arc. There's a graphic novel coming out that's based on Scaredy Squirrel picture books, and this was super cute. I think it's a pretty simplistic graphic novel, so I think it would be great for maybe reluctant readers, or for kids that are kind of growing out of picture books but still like aren't fully into chapter books, or still just want to hang on to that Scaredy Squirrel world. And so I think that part is great. And I really liked the themes was on Scaredy Squirrel being afraid of germs, being afraid of going outside. He like sees a person walking by and he's so scared. Not a person, it's like a bunny or something, but he's like so scared of talking to them. And I think that is so important to have right now because as we transition back to a more normal world, a lot of kids are going to be really scared of germs, scared of being around people, afraid that they, aren't acting correctly. Um, and so I really liked that Scaredy Squirrel really mirrored some of those um, real frights that kids will be having at this moment in time. So I really thought that aspect was amazing. And in general, I just love this book series. Highly recommend it for any kids in your life because it is so cute. Next, I read I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. Heartbreaking book. This, but also so lovely. Um, I mean, for those who have been living under a rock, this is about Ben, who comes out as non binary to their parents, and they're kicked out of the house. And so they have to live with their sister, who they haven't spoken to in like 10 years or something like that. And so, and started like a new school for their last semester of high school. And that aspect is really sad, but it's also really so nice to see Ben creating friends and healing, and it was just a really like lovely book. I think this is a really important book that's going to like save so many lives, and queer youth need to have this. I also read the novella that goes with this called I'll Be Home for Christmas that came out last Christmas, and it was super cute as well. Definitely like a lovely add-on to the universe for anyone who wants a little more Ben times Nathan content. Uh, that was really cute as well. And next, I read A Fall Love Story by Lonely. This was so cute. It's a Romeo and Juliet retelling about kids whose parents own rival pho restaurants, and I just really liked it. It is a little slow paced, and that's like kind of slow burn, but I didn't mind. I also think one other critique I would have of this is the voices do sound quite similar. I listened to an audiobooks that really helped me to keep the perspective straight, because otherwise I think the dual perspective I would have been a little confused just because they are running both are working at restaurants their parents own that are Vietnamese restaurants, and they both go to the same school. They both are like hanging out with similar people. So I do like think that was a little bit of a critique. I wish they had a little bit more distinct voices, but um, as it stands, I don't think it's bad at all. I end up giving this 4 stars because I just really like the romance as well as like the deeper themes about generational trauma and about Vietnamese culture that I thought were really great. So overall, I really loved that aspect. So awesome book. Definitely recommend if you want a cute little YA romance that will definitely make you hungry because there are so many great descriptions of food in here. It's awesome. Next, I read We Are Not Free by Tracy Chee. This book deserves the National Book Award, let me tell you. Uh, I was a little skeptical going into this just because I knew that there are 14 perspectives. So that means every character in this book only has one chapter from their perspective, besides one person that starts and ends the book. So I was a little, I was a little skeptical going into that, but it really worked for the book. The way that she connects everybody by starting in the same place of San Francisco, and then, as their lives change throughout time in Japanese incarceration, it was really like interesting getting all those perspectives and really allowed the author to explore different outcomes for youth based on their family, based on their own decisions. And so we had some people that stayed in incarceration until they like legally were supposed to be freed. Then some people, one way or another, like got out and were living in cities and relocation. Some people went into the army, some people went to Tule Lake. And so seeing all those different outcomes was really interesting, as well as throughout, you still get this like bond that they all have with each other. So it was just really lovely and just really important book. I think Japanese incarceration is something, especially in US schools, is so glossed over in history. And this is such an important book that will teach you so much about that time, but also like craft a lovely story. And so I highly recommend this to literally everybody. I hope everyone reads this book. And I know it's been getting a lot of buzz, especially after being a book award finalist, but I hope it continues to grow and get more acclaim because it definitely deserves all of it. And then next I read If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura. I think I'm like trying to remember, but I read this on audiobook. It's just a nice little short book about this man who finds out he's going to die the next day, and he makes a deal with the devil that he can live another day, but every day that he lives, he has to get rid of something on Earth, like not just for himself, like everything in the world will disappear. So like cell phones, every cell phone disappears, TV, every TV disappears, things like that. And so it was just a really sweet book. I would say the English translation I feel is not the best, but it's also like not supposed to be a super like flowery language book. I think it's more just like supposed to be cute and inspirational, and so I enjoyed it, and it really made me want a cat because the relationship that the main character has with his cat is so cute, and I definitely think like cat lovers would love this book. Uh, so I definitely recommend it as like a heartwarming palate cleanser type of read. And then next I read Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This was really interesting. I know Michelle from Japanese Breakfast, but learning more about herself and her life was really interesting. Mainly focuses on the period of time when her mother was sick and shortly after her mother's death, but also like delves a lot into her childhood as well. And so I really enjoyed this one. I wouldn't say it's my favorite memoir out there, but I also feel like some parts of it I didn't have as much emotional. I thought it would impact me more emotionally than it did. Um, so I was I guess pleasantly surprised by that. Overall, I think this is really good and it definitely deserves the hype that it's been getting. I personally didn't connect with it as much as I thought I would, but that's not to say I didn't connect with it. I still really, a lot of Michelle's experiences really resonated with me, so I really enjoyed reading about her life. Then next I read Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. This is just a collection of speeches and interviews talking about freedom in different contexts through Black Lives Matter, through Palestine, through some other like experiences around the world, but I think those were like the main two that she talks about, and it was really awesome. I mean, anything Angela Davis writes is going to be incredible, so I really love this, and especially with everything going on right now, I think it's really important to read about. She gives some great commentary on Palestine and ways in which freedom movements are across the globe are connected, and so I really enjoyed that aspect, and I felt like I learned a lot. It was definitely one I'll be coming back to. Um, but on first read, I definitely enjoyed, and I just want to read more Angela Davis in general because I think her life is just so interesting, And so I definitely recommend this as like a first read of Angela Davis. Um, I will say it's a little repetitive since it is a collection of speeches, but I didn't mind that too much. And then finally, we have the last book, Dragon Hoops by Jean Luen Yang. This was incredible. I don't know what it is with me in sports content lately, sports books, sports anime, but just having a little moment. And this was really cool about like a high school basketball team who is just trying to win state, and I really like the way he threaded like the story of the season, the basketball season. Like only every other chapter focused on that, and then the like other chapters were more focused on like getting to know the characters slash real people or learning about basketball, the game, and the history of it. I'm gonna put this down because it's heavy. But I just really enjoyed that all of that. I love sports. I love basketball especially, so I just really enjoyed this one, and I definitely recommend it. The art was incredible too, and I'm just a huge fan of his graphic novels, so I loved it. Those were all the books that I read in May. That's It was a long list. I am tired of talking now. I have a lot of great books that I read this month, as well as some not so great ones. So I'm interested to see what the summer holds. In June, I'm only reading queer books, so I'm excited to see what happens there. I'm anticipating it'll be a much better reading month in terms of quality of books in June. So I'm really excited about that. And I think that's all. So thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, you can like the video, and I would love if you'd comment below, tell me about your favorite book of May. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one soon. Bye!